Hey, big weekend in the NFL this week. Probably one of the best divisional playoffs ever. And we'll talk about that here on the Put On Raiders podcast and the Put On Waivers NFL show. So make sure you stay tuned for that. If you are fans of the Cover 3D Raider podcast, listen, switch that feed over to the Put On Waivers podcast because that's where all the podcasts will be. It also will be the home of the Student Body Right USC podcast as well too. So SC fans, I know you've been waiting for it, kind of like the same way you're waiting for Caleb Williams. But yes, it'll be right there waiting for you as well. And welcome everybody to another glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I am your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. I went to the beach today, 70 degrees and perfect. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. It seems like we're getting closer to finding out who the next coach is going to be, or the general manager, at least for the Raiders. So hopefully we hear something by this weekend or early next week.
Yeah, the time is definitely of the essence right here. You're looking at the Raiders kind of getting those candidates down. I'm not big on who's coming in Thursday, but we'll talk about that as far as that goes. My Twitter handle is RTPOW podcast, and Ryan's is RHOLM22. All those breakdowns, everything like that. Kind of started a little Michael Thomas war today, if you will. As far as that goes, kind of interesting conversation there with Raider fans. But let's start off with the NFL part of it, the Put On Waivers NFL part of it. Like, let's go right. The first thing I want to talk about is the overtime rules. Like, whenever people who really don't watch football get involved in football, it kind of happens that way where they see kind of like, I think Peyton Manning had a situation where he went to the playoffs and he lost the playoff game and he didn't touch the football. So next thing you know, they changed the rules. Do you like the overtime rule? I don't have a problem with it. I feel like you had so many plays to stop the Chiefs in this game. It was pure stupidity on a lot of these plays by McDermott and Leslie Frazier. They called timeouts as if it was a basketball game and still didn't get it right defensively. What are your thoughts about the overtime rules?
Yeah, I don't mind the overtime rules. Each team is allowed to have a possession as long as they get a stop. So I'm okay with the touchdown wins it. I don't think they lost the game on the coin toss. I think they lost it in the final 13 seconds when they allowed the field goal. Strategically, I think they should have squib kicked. And then, why are they playing off coverage? Why are they covering the sidelines when they have timeouts? So as far as the overtime rules, it's much better than it used to be where you lost on the field, but at least you have an opportunity to get a stop, hold them to a field goal, and then you have an opportunity for your offense to get back on the field. If we just start doing touchdowns up and down the field, that game might have lasted 5 hours. Who knows who was going to get a stop at that point? So I think the Bills defense, they should have tried to. If they held them to a field goal, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yes.
So I have no problem with the way the rules are set up now.
Yeah, and we also are on Twitter Spaces right now. So if you're on Twitter Spaces, we're just recording the show. Thank you for listening to the show. You're gonna listen to it live, and then you can catch it on YouTube or anywhere you can find your Twitter handle. Thanks for folks who are listening to the show and watching on YouTube from Paris, Texas, Butte, Montana, Atlanta, Georgia, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Sorry for those Packers. Let's just jump into the Packers real quick here. Everybody wants to put LaFleur as coach of the year. This is another year where he's going to end up having to fire a coach. Last year was Penton. This year is going to be their special teams coach. They weren't good all year. I thought that one of the most egregious things in this game too was when you recognize that Deebo Samuel, that animal number 19, is back there for a kick. You get kicked out of the end zone. They were able to get the ball at midfield, led the 3 points for the 49ers, and then 10 men on the field. Well, a lot of shows skip special teams. We talk about special teams a lot if you're new to the show, but that's just a really horrible special teams performance by the Packers there.
Clearly, they're one of the worst special teams unit in the league, however you want to grade it, as far as punt coverage, kick coverage, returns. Things of that nature. And then, they had a punt block with 4 minutes left in the game. It was a touchdown for the other team. So That can't happen. You got to go max protects, whatever you got to do to make sure you don't let a guy come free up the middle. The punter's got to get that ball off his foot, get it out. The 49ers offense is doing nothing that whole game. They couldn't move the ball. I was texting you throughout the whole game asking why the 49ers weren't running the football. They started to do that, late third quarter into the fourth quarter. Jimmy G wasn't really doing anything with the passing attack. And then, offensively, I thought the game plan for the Packers was a little confusing, trying to throw the ball outside the numbers when they were on a snowy, iced over, frozen tundra, whatever you want to call it in Green Bay with 0 degrees, when they should have been working the middle of the field. And you saw what San Francisco did there in the fourth quarter. It was, angle routes out of the backfield, slants, hitting Kittle over the middle. They weren't throwing the ball outside of the numbers. So at the end of the day, though, the game, in my opinion, came down to just poor special teams play. That's what cost them in this game. The Packers didn't try to run the ball, or they couldn't run the ball once A.J. Dillon went out. Jones didn't have much success. And clearly, when you spin this thing forward, what's going to happen in Green Bay? I fully expect Davante Adams to get franchise tagged. I don't care what their salary cap situation is. They'll move money around. They'll figure out how to tag him. They're not going to let him walk, even if he doesn't play there next year. They're going to get a minimum of a first and a third round pick, and I would fully expect 2 first round picks once he's franchise tagged if he doesn't want to be there. I still think at the end of the day, cooler heads are going to prevail. Aaron Rodgers is going to return to Green Bay for one more year. Davante Adams might play on the franchise tag. If Rodgers goes back, Adams goes back. If Rodgers leaves and he does it before free agency, I still think there's going to be a bidding war, and you're going to have to give up probably 2 first round picks and the highest paid contract at the position of wide receiver to try to pry him away. I don't know if the Raiders are the team to do that. And he's not taking a discount to play with Derek Carr. Derek Carr's not taking a discount to play with Davante Adams. We can forget about that talk. But at the end of the day, there might be an opportunity to pry him away, but it's going to be very expensive to do that. I'd put the odds at probably 70% both those guys end up back in Green Bay next year, though.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see it. I know it's nice to tweet, and I'm happy that a lot of people loved Photoshop, and they want to Photoshop Derek Carr and Davante Adams together. It just doesn't financially make any sense. It doesn't work in a lot of different ways. So let's stop. You can stop the pipe dream stuff and just like kind of work on the brass tacks of what the Raiders really need to do is as far as that goes. And our first and a third, like that's not. I mean, the Raiders are not a wide receiver away. They're not a wide receiver away. As far as
also,
that goes.
If you want to touch on Rodgers, just look at it this way. What's Rodgers' best path to get to the Super Bowl next year? It's going to be in Green Bay. The NFC North is terrible. He's going to win the division just by showing up. So he's going to get in the playoffs. He's probably going to be a 1, 2, or 3 seed. They're going to win 12, 13 games with him at quarterback. Does he go to the AFC? Does he want to have to be in a division? Let's say he goes to Denver. Does he want to be in a division with Herbert, Carr, and Holmes? Probably not. That's not the easiest path for him to get to the Super Bowl. Does he want to go play in Pittsburgh, where he's got to go through Cincinnati, potentially Cleveland if they upgrade the quarterback position? Baltimore? No, he's going to stay in the NFC North, where it's cozy, where he has Davante Adams, where he has Aaron Jones, where he has David Bakhtiari, where they have a decent defense, and he's going to walk right through Minnesota, Chicago, and Detroit to win that division. So Aaron Rodgers needs to go where Aaron Rodgers can get to the Super Bowl and win it, and the best place for him to do that is in Green Bay.
And also in the NFC. I mean, the AFC might not be the easiest path as far as that goes. I know some people are floating Pittsburgh. I mean, I don't know. I mean, dealing with that young quarterback, dealing with all those situations like that. I'm not sure if that's going to be the best easy path for him to go to the Super Bowl either. 13 seconds left in the game. Again with the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, we would prefer not to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and we almost had it. But Mike McDermott, Sean McDermott, and Leslie Frazier had other ideas, calling timeouts consistently to try to get themselves in good position. Let's start with the squib kick, which was kind of a no-brainer in that situation. Also, I thought that when they had the ball, you can't give free releases to Travis Kelce and giving up that touchdown to Tyreek Hill is not the best use of your defensive backfield, because he was just like one-on-one inside. He had inside leverage and he was gone.
Yeah, we're at the point now where I thought the 19 seconds where Arden Key had the face mask on Fitzpatrick was the worst end of a game I've seen. This takes the cake. We're at a point now where we need to treat, or teams should treat this kind of like, up by 3 in an NBA game with 5 seconds left, we foul the guy at the punt line. They need to jam the receivers at the line and hold them. If you hold the receiver, as long as you don't get PI, hold them for the first 5 to 8 yards, take up, 5, 6, 7 seconds, make the clock tick. Even if you get a 5-yard holding penalty and they get a first down, you still take 5 or 6 seconds off the clock. You don't give them free release. You don't give up 20-yard catches in 5 or 6 seconds. And then Travis Kelce at the end, I don't know what the corner was doing. He was the only guy on that side of the field. And the corner gave him, like a 10-yard cushion and gave him inside leverage by 4 or 5 yards and just let him run down the seam. And he was guarding nobody but grass. I don't know how you can do that. Sean McDermott is going to live with that forever, the remainder of his coaching career. The Bills would have won the Super Bowl. Let's be honest. He cost the city of Buffalo and his team the Super Bowl in those 13 seconds because they weren't going to lose at home to the Bengals. Bills Mafia was not going to lose the AFC Championship game. And they clearly are a better team than the 49ers and the Rams, in my opinion. So I think that the coaching decisions they made in the final 13 seconds cost that city a Super Bowl championship.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even deal. I mean, it's funny because I think PFF has Tyreek Hill as the most overrated receiver in football. I'm not sure what metric they use for that, but yeah, that guy's pretty good. And I think this is really this trio is. I mean, back in the day they used to call Aikman. Was it Aikman, Irvin, and Emmett, the triplets? Like, this is them on steroids. I mean, you can't. I mean, they're just so explosive. They're so incredibly gifted, and but they know how to get open in critical times, especially when you're playing bad defense. I mean, they were just awful in that game. Cam Akers, you have anything else on that game?
I want to talk about the non-taunting call on Tyreek Hill. I know it's not the right situation, but if you're going to have that penalty all year, how do you let that happen? Like, he clearly did it. It's clearly why they set up the rule. They've called much worse. I know the gravity of the situation, but why are the NFL officials in the playoffs let them play, quote unquote, and then in the regular season that they're ticky-tack nonsense calls? Like, just let them play the whole year. Like, if you're going to play that way where you're going to call 4 or 5 penalties an entire game, I want them to do that for 17 weeks in the regular season and then do it in the playoffs. That's fine. But the referees completely call the game differently in the playoffs. I don't agree with that. Like, if you're going to call it one way all season, call it that way all the way through the Super Bowl. And to just swallow the whistle on that play, and I get it, it's the Chiefs. It's not because I don't like the Chiefs and I'm a Raiders fan. That's clearly taunting and what they emphasized this year. They should have called it, in my opinion.
And then he started early too. He's at a 20-yard line.
Yeah. It's Tyreek Hill's fault for doing it if it gets called. It's not the referees making a bad call in that situation. He knows the rule.
And of course, everybody talked about how what's his name? Mike Tomlin talked about we had to clean up the game, like to clean up the sport because it was getting crazy with that. That would have been a great message to send. As far as that goes. I thought the Rams. I love the Rams in this game. I thought the Rams were going to be a very tough team for the Bucs to deal with. They were for the majority of this game. Cam Akers tried to do his best to kind of keep them in the game. It was really like, it's pretty bad how many fumbles he had in this game. But listen, Todd Bowles, who is coming in for an interview with the Raiders, we'll talk about that when we get to the Raiders section of the show. That was, I'm not sure if it was a total miscommunication, what it was, but in that situation, you really have to make sure that game goes to overtime. You have an opportunity to get to the AFC Championship game, a home game, because it's the Niners. You know it's a home game for you. You have to at least give Tom an opportunity. Tom didn't play great. The Bucs didn't play great, but you have to give your team an opportunity, Ryan, to at least get to overtime and then have it decided there, not on a Cooper Kupp bomb at the end.
Yeah, and Bruce Arians and several players on the defense says the call didn't get in. There was miscommunication. It was supposed to be cover 0, everyone blitzing. A couple of guys didn't. I think one of the linebackers didn't blitz, but you can't leave Cooper Kupp one-on-one in the middle of the field with a safety at that point of the game. With that much time on the game clock, my takeaway from the game was the Rams dominated. They're up 27-3. It could have been, Cam Akers fumbled at the 1. It could have been 34-3. the breaks they got in that game is just so reminiscent of Tom Brady's career. Like, he's the only quarterback I know where like games are 28-3, 27-3, and everything that needs to go right does, and gives them an opportunity at the end. I had a lot of people, after the game tell me, well, Matt Stafford almost blew it. And I'm like, Matt Stafford didn't fumble. That any of the 4 fumbles weren't his fault. Like, I don't know why the takeaway from that game was Matt Stafford sucks, but Matt Stafford won that game with those throws at the end to Cooper Kupp, and did everything he could. So I don't know why the consensus, at least the people that I talked to, were all over Matt Stafford. They should have been over Cam Akers, Cooper Kupp, and then the center for that bad snap right after the turnover. But it's going to be interesting spinning the thing forward. 49ers are coming to town, and the Rams could have ended it. They could have put the nail in the coffin week 17 or week 18. They were up 17-3 at halftime. They let them come back, and here there is the 49ers, who are, I think, 6-0 against Sean McVay the last 3 years, have a chance to go to the Super Bowl and end the Rams season when the Rams had every opportunity in the 49ers season. That's why when you have a divisional opponent, even if you're better than them, you put them away the last 2 weeks of the season. You do not let them get into the playoffs for situations like this.
And then listen, I go back and forth with Shanahan. I mean, he's talented. He can definitely coach, but they were on the precipice of not being a participant in the playoffs at all. Very close to not even being there. Give him credit for coming back, winning a game where they were down 17-0 on the road. Well, I guess not on the road because they're playing in front of their home crowd out there in SoFi. Because they're not enough Ram fans to fill that place, but they did a good job there, and I thought San Fran found a way, to beat Dallas, to beat Green Bay, and they're keeping that thing going. Cincinnati and Tennessee. Before we get to the Raiders, thank you for all the folks listening on the Twitter Spaces as well. What are your thoughts about this one here? Listen, it was interesting that somebody did point out that there was nine sacks of Joe Burrow, but no holding calls the whole game. Like, how did that take place? We've been talking about holding calls on Max Crosby, or lack thereof, this season for 98 of the Raiders, but this defensive line did a great job. I think it's pretty clear that they made the AFC Championship game. Now the Bengals, their defense was great. They made plays. They stopped the Titans when they had to, and they got the turnovers. The turnover battle was huge. And Ryan Tannehill is going to have nightmares in this game, thinking about what happened here.
Yeah, my takeaway of this game was, what the hell was Gus Bradley doing the week before by not blitzing and not pressuring Joe Burrow when that offensive line looked terrible? Miscommunications, guys not blocking anyone. The right guard got his butt kicked by Jeffrey Simmons. And Gus went with his cover 3 and rushed 4 guys and pray to God the defensive ends get there. But anyways, going back to that game, I thought Derrick Henry looked rusty. He didn't look like Derrick Henry in that game. Clearly, the foot's not even close to being 100%. He tried to give it a go. Ryan Tannehill with some bad decisions late in that game. And then to me, the takeaway is Joe Burrow. Like, to be sacked 9 times and take the hits that he took, and stand in there and deliver the passes when they needed to at the end of the game, and to will that team to victory, just shows you how tough he is. I was wrong in the draft process. I thought he was like a better version of Alex Smith. I wasn't a huge Joe Burrow guy. Clearly, I missed on that one. I'll wear that. I think the guy's going to be special. Once he cuts down on some of the decision makings, once they give him a better offensive line, clearly he can get the ball to those weapons outside, and they're going to be a force. I think Kansas City wins that game pretty easily this weekend, but I think that it's going to be close going, probably mid-third quarter, and Kansas City pulls away. I just think the way to beat and we've talked about it twice on the podcast, the way to beat the Bengals is outside, to beat those corners, and Kansas City has the weapons to do that. And I think the offensive line in Kansas City is playing better right now. They're going to be able to run the ball when they want to. Losing Okunjobi in the middle for the Bengals is a tough loss. So I just don't think. And Kansas City's mad. They just lost one, 34-31. So I just don't think Mahomes is going to lose at home. I think Kansas City's headed to the Super Bowl. But Joe Burrow is showing that he's going to be a force to reckon with in this league for a long time. He's only in his second year, and he's in an AFC Championship game.
Yeah, no question about it. He has really been a special performer this year. And talk about comeback. I mean, he was just on the operating table not too long ago, and now he's in the AFC Championship game here going forward. a tough game against the Chiefs. I'm not sure if they're going to win that game, but let's just go right to Championship Sunday. Who's going to win these games before we get to the Raider news that everybody I know in the Twitter spaces and everybody who knows our show is ready for. I think we're going to look at the Rams and Chiefs. I don't think we're going to see a kind of a rematch of the Niners and in the Kansas City Chiefs. I kind of feel like it's very difficult to beat a team, 7 in a row, also beat a team 3 times in one season. I like the way the approach of what McVay has with Stafford. So I like that going into the game. I do wonder if I wonder if they can just, I'm not saying sit the pass rushers, but maybe on first and second down, and who knows, Shanahan's gonna probably come with something different if you do this, but just put some run stoppers out there because that's the biggest thing. If they can't run the football in this game, I don't see how they can win it. Just force the ball, wait for that Jimmy G critical mistake, and then take advantage of it. What are your thoughts about the Rams and 49ers here?
Yeah, I think it's hard to beat a team twice this season, let alone 3. So I think the Rams find a way to win at home. I think they're going to try to be explosive early in this game. Get up, take the running game out. Get up 14-0 if they can. I think you're going to see Jalen Ramsey follow Deebo Samuel wherever he goes on that field. He's going to lock on to him. They're going to have to stop the run. I agree. They're going to have to put some bigger bodies in on early downs, get them into third and long, make them throw the ball. The key here is the return of Andrew Whitworth at left tackle. I think the Rams' offensive line is going to be in pretty good shape in this game. They should be able to hold up enough against the pass rush. And then just what Odell Beckham Jr. brings to that team now, what he's shown over the last 4 or 5 weeks offensively is going to be the difference in this game. And I think they're going to throw the ball all over the yard on that secondary. They're going to try to the 49ers. And then they're going to have to stop the run in the first half and get a decent lead. And then I think Jimmy G is just going to make a mistake like he shows he does every week. And the Rams are going to capitalize on that. I love both home teams this week. I think we're going to see the Rams and the Chiefs. It's going to be a very entertaining Super Bowl, and then we'll see. I don't think the Rams are going to blow this chance to play the NFC Championship game at home, knowing the Super Bowl's in their own stadium.
Yeah, so that's a big caveat there, and I know the NFL will probably like that, and also I think Kroenke would probably love that. I mean, that's probably why the stadium was built for a moment like this, and then why he spent so much money on this team, and they have no draft picks until my son gets into the draft. My goodness, they have no draft picks coming up at all. Brady, Rodgers, next steps for them. Are they done? Are they, you feel like one's coming back and I kind of feel like one's, the way he kind of quoted Kobe Bryant this week, and almost like almost like an ode to football and an ode to Kobe and an ode to going forward with his life. I kind of feel like Giselle might sit down and say, hey, come on, cousin, what else do we gotta do? You won everything, you're the best ever, so let's just call it quits. We'll see what happens there. What are your thoughts about Brady maybe coming back or not coming back, and Rodgers, is he going to be a Packer or is he going to be a Bronco or a Steeler or something like that?
Yeah, I think Brady retires. I think he's going to ride off at this point. That team's not going to look anything like it did this year. Once the salary cap is going to catch up to him this year, I expect Rodgers to be back in Green Bay. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's going to give it, one more run, maybe 2. He's not close to being finished. He's still playing at a high level. Tom Brady looked old in that game. I don't know if they're going to be able to bring back a lot of the pieces around him on that team. It's going to be not going to be a shell of its former self, but it's not going to be the Tampa Bay team that won the Super Bowl last year. They're going to lose a lot of key pieces in free agency, and we'll see going forward. So I expect Brady to retire and Rodgers to return to Green Bay.
Yeah, simple as that. So let's get to the Raiders. Put on Raiders podcast now. And the Raiders, let's just start with the little Twitter thing we started with. You started with. So basically, it's going to be a fire sale in New Orleans. I'm looking through New Orleans's roster. I'm trying to see if I can somehow sneak Kamara on this team. I love Kamara. If I can somehow sneak one of those defensive backs on the Raiders, because they could use some of those players here. You brought up a good point with Michael Thomas. Now, Michael Thomas, talented as all heck. I mean, had the season where he had almost 150 had 149 catches in the season, something like that. It was something ridiculous. Thoughts about him maybe joining the Raiders? I know some people say that he might be a guy who you look at as a as a possession receiver, but a possession receiver with his kind of abilities. I mean, there's a lot of 91 first downs in some seasons. Like I think he would be a great addition if they can make that happen.
Yeah, the guy from 2017 to 2019 averaged 126 catches over a 3-year period. He had 378 catches in 3 years. 1 year he went over 1,700 yards. A lot of people are saying he's injury prone. Well, let's really look at it. I did some research on it today. He got hurt in week 1 of 2020 in a blowout in the final 2 minutes. Came back a couple of weeks later and from an ankle injury, hurt his hamstring, and then he did finish that season. It was Drew Brees' last season, and he fought through the injury at the end of that year. So he played, I want to say 5 or 6 games in 2020. And then there was a misdiagnosis from the medical team, in his opinion. They wanted to rehab instead of have surgery right after the season in January. So he fought through the injury to play in the playoffs. They lost. And then they wanted to rehab it. The rehab didn't go well. So we ended up having surgery on the ankle injury back in, I want to say June or July, which led me to missing this season. So it's kind of the same injury he fought through and he tried to play through for the team. I don't know where all this diva talk is. He's Antonio Brown. I don't want this guy. A lot of comments were funny. I'm just reading them and it's like, hey, they don't need a big possession receiver. I would disagree. Like they didn't have that with Zay Jones or Brian Edwards. They needed that guy that could win in the intermediate, the 8 to 10 to 12 yard range, that could win on slants, that could use a big body. This guy can win in the red zone. Like I don't care. I don't need the speed element of this offense. I need a guy who's going to win in the red zone and put 7 on the board over the guy that might get you 3 or 4 touchdowns a year. John Ross can run, but John Ross sucks. Like you don't just want to put a speed guy out there. I think if you move using Waller out there, I think he could win even more inside, in my opinion. If you could use him against linebackers and safeties, he's going to dominate. When you move him outside, they can put corners on him. They can double team him. You can't double team him in the middle of the field if you have Michael Thomas on one side and Hunter Renfrow in the slot. I think they absolutely need an X receiver, a physical guy that can win. Michael Thomas can win down the field. I saw route trees from 2018, 2019. He was number 1 in the NFL against man coverage. He was number 1 against press coverage. Isn't that what we're talking about? Creating separation quickly and winning. That's exactly what this guy does. As long as the ankle checks out, which you're going to have to do a physical, you could probably get him if they want to move on from him, and they probably will. He probably doesn't want to go back there to play for Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston. They would clear about $2 million in cap room, but they're going to take a $22 million cap hit, but they're going to have to start taking cap hits. They're going to have to start moving pieces. I think it'd be a perfect fit, depending on who the coach is. If the Raiders, if they go to a defensive coach, which it seems like everyone they're interviewing is a defensive coach, if they go that route and they want to run the football and then, have that physical possession receiver, he'd be a perfect fit for this offense. And, I'm tired of hearing about, Carr made Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar had 48 catches. Like this guy had 149 catches. It's $16 million a year. He's easily a top 5 receiver in the NFL if he's healthy. And that's the big question. Like they're going to have to look at his ankle and physically look at it. And compensation wise, maybe 2 number 3s, maybe a 2 and a 5. Like you're probably not going to have to give up a first round pick. He's 28. He's coming off missing basically a year and a half. And I think that it's going to be way less than I would absolutely take him if he was healthy over Devontae Adams, 2 first round picks and $25 million a year. And that's just my opinion. Like, I don't think there's that much difference between the two, but it's recency bias. I think a lot of it has to go to fantasy football. People are just pissed off that he didn't play for their fantasy football team the last 2 years. And they don't really understand how talented Michael Thomas is as a receiver.
Well, folks who are listening on the Twitter Spaces, I see y'all. We're recording the Put on Waivers podcast. So if you do have a question, definitely hit me up on the DM, and we'll get some questions going as well too. So, but we're not going to be speaking during this time because we're just recording the podcast here as well. So I'm not ignoring you. I see you. I see y'all 100%. I see y'all. The Raiders, Ed Dobbs. Will they live in holy matrimony? What's going on with that part of it? I know that's the person everybody wants. We'll see there. I see that the Raiders had just requested permission to talk to John Spytek, who is the VP of player personnel for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for their GM job. So they really are kind of just wide ranging of who they want to talk to here. I think you and I are both on the Dobbs train. Does it sound like with this taking so long and maybe, Michigan upping the ante that Harbaugh might be out, or we're still, you think they're still in the Harbaugh sweepstakes?
Oh, I absolutely think they're still in the Harbaugh sweepstakes. I don't know who John Spytek is. I'll have to research him after we get off today.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that would be a kind of a package deal if Todd Bowles blows away Mark Davis, which I don't think he will. And
no.
clearly, Mark Davis has taken his time here. The funny thing, and I guess it's not funny, but he's clearly trying to appease the NFL here in this process. He's trying to prove to everyone that he's doing his due diligence, that he's doing what the Fitz-Pollard organization wants. If I think 3 of the 5 GM candidates are on their list,
Mhm.
most of the head coaches he's brought in are on their list. So he's trying to cross every T and dot every I he can before he starts bringing in the heavy hitters. That's just my opinion. I fully expect Ed Dowds to get this job. I think he's interviewing Thursday or Friday. So I'd
Mhm.
expect maybe by Sunday we have an answer to who the GM is going to be. Now, can Dodds deliver Harbaugh? I don't know if he can, but clearly, once the GM's in place, then I think you're going to hear that the Harbaugh stuff even ramp up a little bit more. If
Yeah.
Harbaugh doesn't come, let's assume Ed Dowds gets the job. It wouldn't shock me if they go the Bubba Ventrone route. I know I've been pumping him up on Twitter earlier this year. I know he's a special teams coach, but there's just something about that guy that I think is going to lead to him being a very good head coach. Now, it depends. Who is he going to bring in to be his coordinators?
Mhm.
It seems like there's going to be a package deal of some sort, whoever the GM is, because every GM he's bringing in has a connection to a coach they're interviewing.
Yep.
So if it's Dave Ziegler, you have the connection to Jared Mayo. You have potentially Josh McDaniels. I am not a Josh McDaniels guy. I do not want anything to do with Josh McDaniels. I hope the Raiders don't hire him. Um, we'll see what happens there. Now, obviously, bringing in Todd Bowles, and you mentioned requesting permission to talk to a guy from Tampa Bay. There's a
Mhm.
connection there. They've lost out on Byron Leftwich. It's being reported by several people tonight that he's getting the Jaguars job, which was easy to predict back in mid-January once Urban Meyer was officially let go. So we'll see. I hope the Raiders have an answer at the GM position by Sunday or Monday, and then I fully expect them to hopefully have a head coach in place by next Friday. I don't think the NFL wants this dragging on into Super Bowl week, so I'd expect all of these openings to be done by next Friday, a week from this coming Friday. So in the next about 10 days.
Yeah, I mean, you might see a flurry of hires there because people, I think, like you said, I don't think the NFL wants it just to be about the game. That's why most people don't even get an opportunity. You know, they don't want a bunch of hiring news going on during the playoffs, during playoff games, during weekends.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, Sean Payton is not going to change anything. I think the Sean Payton just makes sense to go to the Cowboys, right? I mean, or just sit out of here and wait and let that whole thing implode and get more money from Jerry Jones.
Yeah. One other quick thing on Harbaugh, and this is just the conspiracy theorist and myself being a Raiders fan is what if he told Mark Davis, like, let me get this recruiting class into Michigan? Signing day is February 2nd. So it's next
Mhm.
Wednesday. It's a week from today. Like, what if he told him to slow play this, get the GM, do all your interviews, and then come get me after signing day? Now, clearly the kids can still get out of those letters of intent if the coach leaves, but some of them will stay. Maybe Harbaugh doesn't want to do anything until after he gets that recruiting class in place. He is an alumni there. He does want to see that program succeed. Maybe he's doing what's in the best interest of them. The whole argument that he's using the Raiders as leverage is BS, in my opinion. He doesn't need to use the Raiders as leverage. He's the 11th highest paid coach in the Big Ten. He's making like $4.5 million a year. All he has to do is show the championship ring from the Big Ten to the administration and the fact they went to the college football playoff, and he's earned the right to make $8 to $10 million there, whether or not an NFL team's involved. So I don't buy that at all. This is not a leverage play by Jim Harbaugh. On your second point, Sean Payton, he's going into TV. He's already come out and said he's not going to be coaching next year. He's going to go into the booth somewhere, whether it's Amazon or NBC or Fox or whoever hires him, and then he's going to look for the best opening in 2022. Where's the best quarterback situation, cap situation, talent situation? If Mike McCarthy messes up again in Dallas, which he probably will, he's going to be coaching the Dallas Cowboys in 2023, in my opinion.
It just makes sense. The dots just you at the NFL, you have to follow the dots, and it just makes all the sense in the world as far as that goes. Looking at where he might go. We talked about pipe dream for Rodgers, Watson, and Wilson with the Raiders here. I mean, I know we talked about it at kind of ad nauseum here. This is kind of a blank or get off the pot for the Raiders with Derek Carr, right? I mean, I know if you say Derek Carr the whole show can turn into a whole different thing, but we all know that he's in the last year. You know, if you sign him, it's probably going to be a no trade in there somewhere. Like, all those things like that. You kind of stuck with him for a long period of time. What are your thoughts about this here? Because I just I don't know if they're ready to just kind of part ways with him, but then if they don't, then they're kind of stuck in a situation as far as like keeping him or making him a long-term investment here with the Raiders.
Yeah, this is an interesting. I've been thinking more about this even today when I was out on a walk. To me, you know, I don't think they're going to give him the long-term extension. I don't think you can lock him in for 5 years at 180 to 200 million dollars, and he's your guy for the next 5 years because you don't know who the coach is going to be. You don't know what the roster is going to look like. Are they going to be able to compete? Can they put the pieces around him to where he can compete with Josh Allen and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes? I don't know if they can in the next 2 or 3 years. This team has a lot of holes on it. Can they scrape and claw and get in the playoffs and win a playoff game with him? Yeah, I think they can. Can they get to a Super Bowl with him? Not with the roster that's around him right now. And I don't think it's going to be good enough in the next probably 2 years to say they can. Does Derek Carr bet on himself? And first of all, everyone's saying he won't play on the last year of his deal. He'll hold out. Name me the last quarterback that held out because it hasn't happened. Quarterbacks don't hold out.
Mhm.
Quarterbacks show up, quarterbacks play. Does he bet on himself? Does he pull a Kirk Cousins and say, you know what? I'm going to give the Raiders one more year with a new coaching staff. I'm going to bet on myself. If they're going to franchise me, probably at the end of the year, anyways, and then he can decide, do I want to stay? Or does he just say, you know what? I've done everything I can to help this organization for 10, 12 years. At that point, it'll be 9 years. And does he want to pick where he goes after that and say, you know what, I want to be Tom Brady. I want to go to a roster like Tampa so I can try to win a Super Bowl and do that. So I think maybe that happens. Maybe Derek Carr gives it a one more go. Clearly, at $19 million, he's a bargain at that point. We can argue whether he's worth 35, but he's clearly worth 19. And at the end of the day, I think he bets on himself, and if everything goes well, and that they get to the second round of the playoffs, or they get to an AFC Championship game next year, then clearly you invest in him at that point. If they don't make the playoffs, he's going to get franchised, and he's going to make $40 million
Yeah.
for 1 year, and then he can just keep making that if he wants, or he can demand a trade and find the best situation out there, the best roster to where he can compete and win. He can get into the AFC or the NFC. I'm sorry, he can get away from Mahomes and Herbert and Burrow and Allen, and he can go to a team in the NFC and try to win. So I think
Mhm.
for him, for his career,
Mhm.
if he wants to win rings at the end of the day, he's 30, 31.
Yeah.
That's the best route to go. Play one more year and then tell them where you want to go after that. Because
Yeah.
he's gonna hold all the bargaining chips at that point.
It's funny because it would be very Carr-like for him to just have a explosive year next year. And then the
I'm
last year of
fine
a
with that.
contract, and I'll take it. I'll take it
I'll
either
take it. Yeah.
because either way it helps the Raiders because it helps them with wins and also helps them with if they do want to trade him or go on from him or if it clicks for him. I know Todd Bowles is coming in Thursday, so I'm gonna go over Todd Bowles just real quick because I don't like this candidate, and I just want to just say why. So first year one, 10-6. I believe they did not make the playoffs that year. I remember that game. I remember that vividly because living on the East Coast, they had a win in their in scenario at Buffalo and got blown out last game of the year in Buffalo. So 10-6. After that, he was 5-11. After that, he was 5-11 again. After that, he was 4-12. His choices for offensive coordinator were Chan Gailey and Jeremy Bates. Jeremy Bates is no longer in football as far as that goes. So yes, he might have not had the best quarterback situation there, all that things like that. But I would say that's probably it's difficult. We talked about this whole thing here. If you hire a defensive coach and then you end up getting a hot streak offensively, if Lombardi keeps doing what he's doing and with the Chargers, he's not going to stay. And then you have another offensive mind coming in to work with Herbert. And I'm not saying you never hire a defensive coach, but that's what's going to happen here with the Raiders if you do that.
Ideally, in that situation, you promote the quarterback coach and you stay in house and you have long term success that way. It's going to be really hard to do that in a year or two with the staff. Todd Bowles, to me, the offensive coordinator is a big question. I'll give him a pass in New York. Who are his quarterbacks? Ryan Fitzpatrick and Sam Darnold. It's not like they had elite quarterbacks there. But at the end of the day, I don't think he moves the needle enough for me. If they're going to go the defensive route, I'd much rather take a risk on a D'Amico Ryans, even a Jared Mayo, a younger guy from successful organizations that might be able to attract a better offensive coordinator. Who's Todd Bowles going to bring with him? Like Byron Leftwich is going to be the coach of the Jaguars. The quarterback coach in Tampa, I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say Clyde Christensen, an older guy that's been around the league. He's not an offensive coordinator candidate, so it's going to be someone that he hasn't worked with in the last couple of years. He's been with Bruce Arians. He was with him, I want to say in Arizona as well. So that would be a huge concern for me. And then if he did get the defense better and the offense took another step back, they can't afford to do that. The offense needs to take another step forward. So I'm not sure that Todd Bowles is anywhere near the top of the list for me. I would much rather, if it's going to be defense, I would like to go another route than
Here, Bisaccia is no way, right? He's no way he's coming back. You think it's a possibility he would come back? I mean, I'm not sure he would come back, but I'm saying would the team have him back? I'm not talking about. I know he'd probably be the first one out there at Henderson if that happened.
Back as the head coach or back as a special
back as the head coach. Back as the head coach. You think any way that they just say, you know what, we don't have Harbaugh said no, we need box office. Let's just run it back one more time.
Yeah, here's how I feel about that. There's no such thing in my mind as run it back for one more year. If you're going to hire Rich Bisaccia, you give him 3 or 4 years. If you don't think he's that candidate, do not hire him. Yeah. Will he be back? And I see a lot of people saying, well, he'll come back as a special teams coordinator. That's not how male egos work. That's and the head coach, trust me, the last thing whoever the new head coach is to have Rich Bisaccia on the staff and have the players, if they don't like Jim Harbaugh, they don't like Jared Mayo, they don't like D'Amico Ryans, you don't want to have that guy on staff that they're going to run to and talk to behind the head coach's back. There's no way that's going to happen. Rich Bisaccia is either the head coach or he's not on the staff next year.
Yeah.
As far as can it happen, I would say probably 10% chance. Maybe Mark Davis just doesn't like any of these candidates and goes that route. I mean, the candidates that he's brought in aren't exactly top of the market. I was told by Twitter the Raiders are the #1 job and they can have whatever coach they want and they're going to be lining up and everyone wants to coach the Raiders. Well, why the hell haven't they interviewed any of the good coaches? Is my next opinion. But we'll let Mark Davis answer that one. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the GM. The usually GMs get an opportunity to hire 2 head coaches and then they're gone. You can't be a GM and have one of those guys be Rich Bisaccia and move on after a year because you better get the next one right or you're going to be out of a job. So for job security's sake, whoever the GM is, there's no way they can hire Rich Bisaccia unless it's the internal candidate. I want to say is Dwayne Joseph. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, or it's Dwayne Joseph.
Dwayne Joseph.
I don't think he's the candidate either. If they were going to promote internally, they would have already done it. They're not going to run it out to February to do that. So I clearly think they're going to hire an outside GM, and the GM is going to be in step with Mark Davis on who the head coach is, whether that's Jim Harbaugh or someone else. If it's not Harbaugh, like I said, if it's Ed Dowds, I would throw the name Bubba Ventrone in there because I'm pretty sure they're going to interview him. If Jim Harbaugh doesn't come, a lot of people are not going to be excited by that name. I actually like that name just personally. And then we'll see what happens. But he's going to have to have a strong ability to attract an offensive and a defensive coordinator to come in. And he does have a tie to Harbaugh. He did play for Harbaugh for the 49ers. So could the Raiders hire Harbaugh and then somehow pull the special teams coordinator from the Colts and make him like an assistant head coach / special teams coach? Would the Colts allow them to do that? I don't know. I would love to see that pairing, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, hopefully there's a GM in place by Sunday or Monday, and then hopefully we have a head coach by next Friday.
On the GM front, Trey Brown, Dwayne Joseph, almost said Dwayne Joseph, Champ Kelly, and then Dave Ziegler. I mean, of these candidates, I mean, if we ranked them, I mean, I think everybody in Raider Nation is just like, I'm out on Ziegler. Like, I'm not sure what the hell that is. Don't have any idea why. I mean, whatever. I don't want him there at all. The Patriots have not drafted well for a long period of time. So as far as that goes, I'm good with that one. Champ Kelly from the Bears, player personnel, the guy there. And then the Raiders internal candidate, Dwayne Joseph, and then we know Ed Dodds and Trey Brown. Anybody in there you think would kind of is a close second? This is just pretty much get us through this weekend, get us through all this process, and then all of a sudden it's going to be time for Brown. I mean for Dobbs.
If I had to say a close second, I would say it is Ziegler. I think Mark Davis looks at the success the Patriots have had, wants to pull some guys from that building. Maybe there is high respect internally for Joseph, who did come from the Patriots as well. So there is a working relationship between Joseph and Ziegler. But Ziegler's not the GM over there. Bill Belichick's the GM over there. He's the one
Exactly.
making all the moves. So like you're pulling a guy who isn't technically the GM there, and then he's going to bring over either Mayo, who's never doesn't have any head coaching experience. He's been a position coach for 3 years. He's not even really the defensive coordinator for the Patriots either. Or Josh McDaniels, who, let's be honest, he drafted Tim Tebow and thought he was a quarterback in the first round, and then he bolted on the Colts. Like that doesn't do anything for me over there. And he had Tom Brady, and we could talk about Mac Jones all we want. I still don't think Mac Jones long term is anything better than probably the 12th to 15th quarterback in the league. He's Chad Pennington, in my opinion. He's not a difference maker. So we'll see what happens. But I clearly think Trey Brown. They're probably looking at bringing him in a front office capacity. He's just he's a scout for the Bengals. He's not like a director of college personnel or anything like that. So maybe the Raiders interview him. This is the second time they interviewed him when they hired Mike Mayock as well.